his intentions be? You ever thought that there was something else between the two of you?
Well, I never gave him any reason whatsoever to think that, though. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a princess, and he works for the royal family. There's no way that would ever work. I mean,
you can't control how love takes hold.
it makes no sense, though. I mean, up until today, he's shown no indication whatsoever that he's been upset. He's been fine.
Maybe he hasn't been fine.
Well, if that was the case, darling, he should have said something before now. I mean, Giles and I have been courting for months. Why on earth does one wait until the wedding day to start causing fucking problems like I don't have enough stress going on right now? I'm marrying the man of my dreams, and I've got my best friend acting like a silly child, and there's still so much to do.
I'm just happy to be back in time for this.
Well, I'm glad you're back as well, darling. I mean, at least this way you get to meet your aunt, right? If my best friend isn't going to show up for my wedding, at least I have my sister and my daughter.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you. I'm rather happy myself.
But I'm also slightly worried at the same time.
What are you worried about?
I'm like, well, I haven't really met Sir Giles.
The only real thing that you need to know about Sir Giles that could set your mind at rest is that when I was foolish enough to walk inside that Chaos Fortress, and I was their prisoner for 3 days, the first thing he did was rally the troops and march his entire Bretonnian army right to the gates of that fortress, ready to storm the place, trusting me to do what I needed to do on the inside until the troops on the ground were ready. He rallied the free people, he got Empire help, and he marched the entire Bretonnian army right up there. Aimed trebuchet, blew his horn to let me know he was around, kept me sane, and rescued me.
You know what I would have done?
Probably something that would have resulted in either your death or mine if I knew you well enough, Kaida.
I would have won army.
Yep, you don't change. The amount of forces that they had in there, darling, no one could have one-armied it. And he knew that. One-armying it would have resulted in my death. He bought me time. I escaped.
That's why I would have done it.
Yes, but then both of us would be dead. And chaos would get to take over the lands, because right now the only thing that's standing between chaos and decimation is us. The Bretonnians, the Empire, Giles.
Do you know how hard it is to catch mice?
I do know how hard it is to catch mice. Except when you have a fucking good cat. And the Chaos Forces have hundreds and hundreds of fucking good cats. And traps. Poisoning a rat kills it instantly. There were poison traps all over that place. There were spike traps. There were gas traps. There were lava pits. The entire place was a maze. I got to see it firsthand, and I got marched all the way through. It wasn't the most pleasant experience in the world. Neither was getting out. I only managed to do so because they were foolish enough not to lock a door behind them. They were so distracted with what Giles was doing outside that when they went to feed me, they left a gate open to my cell. And me, being the slippery little dragon that I am, managed to sneak past all their guards to get out. I wouldn't have got out of that cell alive if it hadn't been for the distraction outside that Giles created with the free people. That man's a legend in his own lifetime, Kaida.
You know what I would have done? picked you up over my shoulders and took you away.
You wouldn't have been able to break down the cell, darling. Trust me.
Same exact thing.
That man saved my life in more ways than one.
And that he has my thanks.
The one thing I will say is that being on the inside of that place helped us to tear down the fortress afterwards. Because every drop of blood of mine that they spilt lessened the corruption in the place. And that weakened them.
So my question is, why does your blood drop the corruption?
That's an interesting question, but every time I come into contact with corruption, my blood tingles and the corruption drops.
True.
See, a dragon cannot be corrupted by chaos. It can choose to turn to chaos and accept the chaos. I use the term blessings extremely loosely. They can be beaten, have their will broken, and become a chaos being, or they can seek power and choose willingly. But if they don't choose it, then they can't be turned, which is why a dragon in the Chaos Army is such a high valued possession, because that's basically what you would become once you've agreed to be turned, you know? Giles knew this, of course, and so while I was on the inside of that fortress, he was trusting my blood to do what it needed to do, and for me to stay strong and not to turn, despite the torture that they put me through. And they did torture me quite badly. And that's why, among the many reasons, the fact that he trusted me so readily to do what needed to be done in there, knowing I wouldn't turn, knowing I'd see through the lies and the deception. It's one of the reasons I fell for him in the first place. It's the first time in my life a man's ever accepted me for who I am, what I'm capable of doing, almost an equal. I've had a few problems with the fact that, you know, Bretonnian knights tend to slay dragons. Giles never tried, of course, but the other Bretonnian knight now, I think he's been wanting to do so for a while. We've come to an accord, I suppose, a loose one. Since the wedding announcement, he's started to accept who I am, what I am, and the fact that I'm not going anywhere. But in the beginning, oh, it was rocky. There have been times that I wanted to eat the man, and I'm not talking jokingly at this point. You know, my usual, oh yes, if you don't behave, I'm going to eat you flippant comment. No, I actually really wanted to eat this man more than one occasion. I'm not going to lie. Giles was always there to calm me down, to put him in his place, to make him realise that he was speaking to a lady quite badly. I nicknamed him Sir Grumps a lot when he first arrived because all he ever did was glower and at people. Did not like the company I kept, or the company Giles kept.
The one that almost attacked me on the battlefield.
That's him.
He's a hut. The one that almost attacked me on the battlefield, the knight, the one that was in the uniform. You remember? The shoulders. Yeah.
Yes, I'm not sure why he did that.
Because he didn't know who I was.
Oh, yes. I did rather lose my temper with him a little bit that night, if I recall.
Oh.
He didn't like the way I handled things, it seemed. I mean, there was an incident where I could see a marauder up on a cliff firing a trebuchet straight at her own. And I didn't like it. So I shouted to Egan to fly with me. And I trusted him to do his job on the ground with the troops, and off I flew. Right up to the top of that little cliff, engaged the marauder, and knocked his ass flying. Right off the cliff. And as the little shit tried to climb back up, I waited until he was about to just peek over the edge, and I hit him with a lightning bolt and sent his ass tumbling to the ground and killed him. But apparently I should have stayed with my troops, even though I was the only one that could get there. And so he started with his ranting and his raving and his rambling about how a good general would have left orders for the troops. And I told him I trusted him to do his job and take command of the troops because he kept telling me that I should be trusting him and Giles more to take command and that I shouldn't be micromanaging everything. And the one time I trust him, what does he do? He strops about it and sulks and complains.
Hmm.
You know, my biggest regret in all of this is that Terror is gone and won't be here today. I have you. I have my sister and I have Giles, of course. Friends. My best friend isn't here.
I have a feeling that Terror will be here in some type of way.
Perhaps. Wearing the dress she left me, even though I made one of my own. It's my something borrowed. Something old. I'm not really borrowing it anymore. I have the necklace that she left me that I'm to return to her if we ever meet each other again in the future. So I have my something borrowed. She left them with me before she departed these lands. But she didn't tell me how she was going to depart.
And I bet Terror, the all-powerful demon slayer, is not gonna be missing it in view. I bet there's some way that she has. I bet there's a crystal ball that she can see this world unstill.
Yes, she did tell me she'd be watching. And that if we ever needed her, all we needed to do was pray. And I pray on a daily basis, of course, at the lady now, but I talk to her all the time, Kaida, as if she's still here. What would Terror do in this situation? It's what drove me up that cliff to kill that marauder, if I'm honest. By the way, that necklace you gave me with the crystal in it, you said I'd find out what it was for one day. What was it given to me for?
It was a word of protection.
Yes, it protected me while I was inside that Chaos Fortress.
I felt it too.
When I first got there, they stripped me of everything. My armor, my weapons, everything. I was stood in there completely naked. The one thing that they could not take, that they couldn't get from me, was that necklace. No matter what they tried, it stayed around my neck. Interesting.
You don't mess with a nice princess.
So two princesses walk into a bar. I'm sure there's a joke about that somewhere. How did you find out?
I found out a lot of things about me. Not all of my kidnapping was bad. There were some good parts too.
In what way?
In the beginning, I was taken by my parents.
I thought your parents died.
I thought they did too. Turns out that those two that were in the library were guarding my egg.
Oh, okay, that would make sense. Dragon eggs are very, very, very precious. You don't really leave them unattended. If they're running a kingdom.
And I got to meet my parents. They're both powerful ice dragons. And I met someone special to me. His name was Vulcan. And the night that I was taken by the captors that did this to me is the last night that I saw him. So, don't think I'm ever going to be able to go back to that realm, but I hope one day.
Don't ever give up hope, my darling. If the fake Giles that Chaos sent after me taught me one thing, is that doors to other dimensions can be opened extremely easily.
A fake Giles.
Yes. Seems Chaos knew my heart's desire better than I did. because they sent something in the guise of Giles, pretending to love me for who and what I was, and I'd never had that before. So the peace of it, the longing for it, it awakened in me a need that I didn't even know existed.
I love you for who you are.
Thank you, darling, that's very much appreciated. But my entire life I was treated like a broodmare. My job was to marry a prince, a dragon prince, and produce baby dragons, and that's all my lot in life was ever going to be. And I'd convinced myself that I didn't want that. I didn't want marriage, I didn't want children, I didn't want men. And then this Sir Giles arrived, and I knew, straight away I knew it wasn't him. For the manner he was conducting himself, to how insistent he was being on protecting me and watching me while I slept, to the fact that he was using words and phrases Giles wouldn't use, and he wasn't wearing his helmet when he always did. And yet I longed so much for what he said he felt for me. Stirred things in me that I thought had long been buried, that I didn't need and I didn't want. Was tender and kind, knew all the right words to say. And even though I knew it wasn't him, the longing for that, and the knowing that it wasn't really him, why were they offering me these things and why did I want them so badly, is what drove me through that portal. And while I was in there, they brought the fake Sir Giles back, pretended they'd captured him, scaling up the side of the building. I knew it wasn't him then, too. Giles wouldn't scale up a building, he'd blow a hole in the fucking front gate. But I played along a little. They took this fake Sir Giles to a cell, put me in the one next to him, and tortured him.
True.
Made me listen. And part of me, just a small fraction, was like, what if I've just killed this man? And I realised then that even though we hadn't spent that much time together, and even though we hadn't been on a date or anything like that, that I had feelings for him. And I never thought anything would ever come of it, so I just buried them again and pretended I didn't feel them. They were like, do you not feel anything for this night at all? And I'm like, no, I barely knew him, you know? I had to let them kill an innocent man to make them believe that I actually didn't care. Because if I had shown that weakness, they would have made a play for him, and they would have tortured him, and they would have killed him to get what they wanted from me. And after I escaped that building and I saw that he was still alive, my heart leapt. And you know what that man did? He picked me up every evening after I got out of there. And he took me to quiet places because he knew that all my friends would be fussing around and making sure I was okay and safe and healing. Apart from Egan. Egan never once asked me how I was feeling. Never once told me that he was worried for me, that, you know, he missed me, or that, you know, he was scared for me. Nothing. He just pretended nothing had ever happened and carried on regardless. But Giles picked me up and he took me out to places I could think, to places I could be, to places I could just relax and hear nature, sounds. Didn't even talk most of the time, just sat there, held my hand, and let me just be peaceful, quiet, thinking. It was during those quiet moments and the conversations that we did start to have that how he felt about me started to be revealed. And that when he heard I was in that fortress, part of him died because he thought I was going to. And that he didn't care about anything else but getting me out of there. He was there so quickly.
Ugh.
What on earth was that?
I keep staying away.
Good, darling, I'm glad. It's important that you take some rest and that you get strong again. I do hope you weren't too badly injured, sweetheart.
I've been getting better, though. They're starting to fade. They're not as bad as they were. Oh, you should have, you should have seen how bad I looked when I walked through the castle doors, house doors.
And let me guess, Egan went straight into a flat panic.
Yes.
Yes, he's good at that. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you got back, but my duties have kept me at Basten for the last wee while. Since I was knighted after taking that Chaos Fortress down and Sir Giles collapsed on the volcano and I had to carry him back down, then most of my time has been spent there, I'm afraid. Well, actually, I'm not afraid. I've enjoyed it.
Ah, that's horrible tasting.
Very ladylike, my darling. Very ladylike.
But it works. It works.
I can clearly hear that is the case, yes. I mean, I've obviously heard Sir Giles belch on a regular occasion, but I think if I were to ever belch in front of him, I might die of embarrassment. He might find it amusing. I think I would be mortified, if I'm perfectly honest with you. Not very dignified and ladylike. Though quite dragon-like, actually.